changes have been made. So we have automatic sprint. Automatic tactical sprint I have turned on. It's going to help us move across the map faster and more dynamic. Slide maintain sprint, turn this off. We used to have this on, but it actually causes you to sometimes dive even when you're only tapping the slide button. When we have it set later, we'll look at coming to the slide only or the hybrid. Sometimes slide maintain sprint causes you to slide or causes you to dive even though you don't have diving enabled. So turn that off and that'll hopefully fix some of those accidental dives. From there, tactical sprint behavior, I have set to single tap run. So if we tap sprint one time, our gun will go up into a tactical sprint. Turn all of this off. Grounded mantle, automatic airborne mantle, automatic mantle hang. It's going to cause you to accidentally mantle onto stuff you don't want to. For slide dive behavior, this is a new setting, okay? And this is kind of what allows players to get the movement kind of what the Envision provides, because now you don't have to choose between tap to slide or tap to dive. You can now set it to hybrid, and here's what it does. It says tap only to slide or tap while holding sprint input to dive. So what that looks like in game is, as you'll see here from my hand cam, and I'm going to blow up the hand cam so that way you can see it easier. If I am sprinting around, I can simply tap and it will instantly start my slide. Okay, it used to be I would have to tap and then release, which would make it feel really sluggish and would make slide cancels feel bad. Now, granted, I would be using my paddles on the back, but I'm going to show you the face button so that way you can see it. So as I'm sprinting around and I have it set to hybrid, if I press B, I instantly slide. Now you'll see if I press it and I hold, I still don't dive no matter what. In order to dive, I have to press down in. So then you could dive on for door bash, mantle only. I can press this paddle to dive, this paddle to slide, this paddle to jump, and this paddle to prone. So basically I have the advantage of being able to move as I, see fit across the map just with the paddles. But if you don't have a Scuff and Vision, now you at least have the option to have a somewhat ergonomic gameplay experience by using the hybrid feature. So change that to hybrid if you haven't already. Okay, we're gonna have plunging underwater set to free, parachute automatic behavior set to off, turn that to on for door bash, mantle only, hold, sprint. All this is pretty much set to standard. Make sure we have our interact behavior set to prioritize interact. That's going to allow us to open doors, loot, etc. a lot faster. Apply all plates. We already know that. And then everything else here is pretty much going to be standard. I have depleted ammo weapon switch turned off because I don't like the game switching my weapon for me. I'm a big boy. I'll know when I'm running out of ammo. I'm always tracking that. I will switch myself when I run out of ammo. From there, only other thing that we're going to change here is ping wheel delay. I have that turned off. Basically, that's when you hold the ping wheel, you can like select around and be like, thank you. Yes, over here. I just have that turned off because I only want to like danger ping and live. Like I want a live ping and I want to like ping a direction, and that's it. I don't like that wheel coming up and blocking my face. Okay, and so that is all of the controller settings, but for the Envision, we're going to get a little bit more fancy, and I want to cover that real quick before we get into the mouse and keyboard settings, okay? A lot of you guys have been asking about my Envision keybinds for a long time, and I pretty much have them perfected now, so go ahead and take a look at what I have right here. Once again, if you guys want to pick up an Envision, they're the sponsor of today's video. Check out the link in the pinned comment and the description. Here is why it is so special, because it allows me to remap every single button, both face buttons, rear buttons, etc. And the nice thing about this controller is it's super cheap compared to other custom controllers, because it's an Xbox, it is a PC controller. It is not an Xbox controller or PS5 controller. They don't have to pay licensing fees to Sony and Xbox. So it is a PC controller that is cheaper than any other custom controller on the market because they don't have to pay Sony and Microsoft, okay? So here's what I have mapped. Go to your mappings. I have mute chat set to right here. I have mute game set to right here. And obviously I'm just binding it, and then I just have it set to 6. You would just change those binds in game. I have auto run set to this one right here, and I just press auto run. So then whenever I press it, I can just move across the map. So I can talk to chat. I press that button one time and my character is just auto running across the map. For push to talk, I have set to my right bumper. So if I ever want to talk in game, I just press this right here and then I'm automatically talking to the chat. I have that set to P, and then you just go into game and change P to push to talk in game, and then boom, you press that. Now you're push to talking. For ping, I have set to up on the D-pad. So anytime I press this left side bumper, I am up on the D-pad, live pinging my opponents. And here's where things get really interesting for me, at least on the movement side. This is probably what you're really interested in. So I have instant dive set to my right bracket, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. I have instant prone set to my left bracket. I'll show you that here in a moment. I have slide and crouch set to the B key. So just the standard B key as you would log, volume down. I also bring back all of my cinematic so they're not so ear-piercing loud, and the lowest sounds up, so hopefully you can hear some things. Now they have in the most recent update buffed the ability for us to hear people parachuting and people hitting zip lines and ascenders, which will allow us to hear those from farther away. And they've also added a new notification where you can hear an announcer saying, "And are you dropping in?" like we had back in the old days. Once again, we're getting back old features finally. So I have my speaker set to default system device. I have it set to PC speaker and Windows default as well. From there, you can change things as you like. I bring the dialogue volume down. I also bring back all of my cinematic volume. War tracks, I have all the way down to 0 as well. That's something that got reset in the most recent update. And then gameplay music volume as well. Some people still have this set to 100, and in the final circle, they're hearing dun 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 dun. Turn that off. Okay, voice chat volume set as you see necessary. I have everything else here set pretty standard as well. Nothing really too special going on for the rest of this. I do have reduced tinnitus sound turned on, which takes away some of that ear-piercing high-pitched that sounds realistic, but uses for myself. ADS field of view is set to affected. Our weapon field of view is set to wide, which makes the gun a little bit smaller inside of our hands. Third-person field of view doesn't matter because third-person doesn't exist anymore. And vehicle field of view is set to wide. I think you can do third person in zombies as well, so you can throw that to wide and 90. We definitely want our weapon motion blurs off, film grain, turn all that off. Make sure to have as little camera shake as possible. Some people have inverted flashbang. I don't. Okay, so from there, let's get into the audio settings. For the audio settings, I have mine set to PC low, off, low, off, off, off. Test all these things in game to kind of see what the difference is before and after for both frame rate and quality. But these are what I would run. So if you just want to trust me, run with this. I run normal, normal, off, normal, very low, on, because I like to see bullet recoil patterns with the bullet impacts. Persistent effects off. Shader quality is low. If you do want better looking game, you can throw that to medium or high, but it is a little bit taxing on your GPU. No on-demand texture streaming. And then pretty much all these are low, off, 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 low, off, low, off, off, off. Once again, these are all unnecessary things, in my opinion, that yes, can make your game look more beautiful, but it's more atmospheric things that you probably won't notice running around. What you will notice running around is the texture on your gun, the texture on the walls right next to you. You're not going to notice missing fog or missing ambient effects or light rays or god rays, but the rest of your game will look beautiful and will run very, very smooth. Okay. From there, we're gonna go over to our view. I have my field of view set to 117. I'm still paranoid that if you set it to 120, it causes you to lose aim assist sometimes, but that's probably just me getting slammed and I'm making input latency that you don't want in your game. Yes, it may give you higher frames, but it's not worth the input delay, especially in a brutal FPS like Warzone. For there, hitch, you could bring that down lower as well. Some people suggest setting it to about 60, but I don't get any hitches at 90, but just know that if you do, you can bump that down. Variable rate shading. This technically will make your game look worse. By the books, it says it, but I haven't noticed any difference running around the map, but I have noticed a difference in my frame rate. So if you want your game to have a higher frame rate, consider turning on variable rate shading. My game still looks stunning in 4K. I would encourage you to try it. Do not turn on DLSS frame generation. I've seen some people suggesting that for higher frame rates, but it's just going to cause a lot of input latency that you don't want in your game. Yes, it may give you higher frames, but it's not worth the input delay, especially in a brutal FPS like Warzone. For there, I have texture resolution set to normal, same with texture filter anisotropic. You can set those to low and very low, but they really don't start to tax your performance until you get to about high. Now, what you can do is do what I've done here, where you can actually star these individual ones by pressing Y or triangle, and then you can test them one by one, and they'll appear in your quick settings, and you can test them later as you're in game just really quickly and see, oh, okay, I can check my detail levels, my shader quality levels, my texture qualities, and that's kind of a good way to just quickly test all these things in game to kind of see what the difference is before and after for both frame rate and quality. But these are what I would run. So if you just want to trust me, run with this. I run normal, normal, off, normal, very low, on, because I like to see bullet recoil patterns with the bullet impacts. Scale set to 90. If your game settings changes, I would encourage you to go back and hit restart shaders preloading. Your game is going to do this when it starts up a new season, but if you're changing up a bunch of these settings, I would encourage you just to once over, reset your app, restart the shaders, reset the app again, and then you should be running smooth from there on out. For the brightness, I have set to 55. That helps us see inside of the shadows a little bit better. We also have NVIDIA reflex latency set to on plus boost. Eco mode is custom, VSync off. Make sure we have our custom frame rate set to unlimited. Now there's two new settings here. We have the menu render resolution. I have mine set to native because I want my game to look as beautiful as possible because I do a lot of videos in this menu. It by default will be set to optimal, which will basically make your menus look a little bit less beautiful. Most people probably won't care, but since I do a lot of settings videos, I set it to native. If you want your game all the time to look as good as possible, set that to native as well. There is a new setting for pause game rendering. When you pause the game, it'll stop some of the rendering in the background to save some GPU performance. It's largely an energy consumption thing. I personally don't really care too much about that. I don't want any pausing or hitching as I'm going in and out of the game, so I have mine set to off. From there, I have HDR off as well. For the quality, make sure you have your render resolution set to 100. Dynamic resolution is off. We use Fidelity FX Cast with the strength set to 90. This is going to make the game look sharper, which is going to help bring out some of the outlines. It's also just going to make the game look cleaner as well and clean up some of those lines. And that's what I run. You can set that as high or as low as you want, but I like my game looking pretty sharp. It helps bring out some players. Definitely no ray tracing. We have our VRAM scale set to 90. If your game starts to hitch, you could bring that down lower as well. Some people suggest setting it to about 60, but I don't get any hitches at 90, but just know that if you do, you can bump that down. Variable rate shading. This technically will make your game look worse. By the books, it says it, but I haven't noticed any difference running around the map, but I have noticed a difference in my frame rate. So if you want your game to have a higher frame rate, consider turning on variable rate shading. My game still looks stunning in 4K. I would encourage you in-game settings, but we also need to adjust our Windows settings as well to get the max performance out of our PC. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go onto our desktop, we're gonna go down to our bottom left and just type the word game, or just type the letter G, and you'll see game mode settings. We're gonna make sure we have game mode set to on. And then from there, we're gonna go to where it says graphics settings and turn on hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. Now, it used to be slightly better to have it off, but in the most recent updates and all the testing that I've seen across the community, it is better now to have hardware accelerated GPU scheduling turned on. From there, we're gonna right click our desktop, go to NVIDIA control panel, and we're gonna go all the way to our manage 3D settings, go to our global settings, and we're gonna make two quick changes. First off, we're gonna have low latency, make sure that is set to on. And then from there, we're also going to go to power management mode and make sure we have prefer maximum performance, because we want the most performance to our GPU. We're not necessarily worried about saving power and energy bills. We're trying to get SR here. We got gains to get. Okay. From there, you're going to go to change your resolution and make sure your refresh rate is set to the refresh rate of your monitor. I'm currently using an Asus a 4K 32-inch 160 hertz monitor, but in the future I'll be getting the new Asus OLED 240 hertz probably within the next month or so, so I'm super excited to move over to that. Now also make sure in your display settings you have that set as well. Set your monitors up as you see fit. Go into your advanced display settings and make sure your refresh rate is set as high as it can be there as well. One other thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into our documents folder, Call of Duty, go into players, go into options.4.cod23. And when we open this up, to Asus OLED 240 hertz probably within the next month or so, so I'm super excited to move over to that. Now also make sure in your display settings you have that set as well. Set your monitors up as you see fit. Go into your advanced display settings and make sure your refresh rate is set as high as it can be there as well. One other thing that we're going to do do is we're going to go into our documents folder, Call of Duty. Go into players, go into options.4.cod23, and when we open this up, there's only one setting that we're going to change right now, and there's a lot of settings you can do here, okay? And all of these things that I've shown you so far, I've kind of gotten done through my own testing and my own time playing the game. There has been some really in the weeds changes that I've had made both to my config file, to my BIOS settings, to my RAM timings, to where my CPU runs cooler, to my RAM runs cooler. Everything is running. I don't have dev errors like a lot of streamers and a lot of players have issues with. Now, I will say, anyone who's looking through all these settings and you're looking at this early in the season, all I'm seeing across all the timeline right now is there is a major bug with Fortune's Keep. Okay, Fortune's Keep at launch has an FPS bug. I don't know how long that's going to go on. I don't know when that's going to get fixed. That is irrespective of the settings that I'm giving today. That is a game level issue that will not be fixed by these settings. All that being said, there's a team from a group called FPS Hub, more specifically a guy named Merc. He's going to be linked in my description. He tuned my PC, which I know is like a scary word because most tuning is snake oil. He really helped me out, man. My game runs very smooth, even with all the research that I've done. This guy does this for a living, and he does a damn good job. So if you're having issues, you want to have your BIOS looked at, you want to have your RAM timings looked at, you want to have your CPU timings looked at, go ahead and hit up a guy like that. He will really go above and beyond. But this is like a 95% fix of all the things that I've known and researched myself, okay? The only thing that we're going to change in here is this right here, the renderer worker count. You've likely seen this before. It helps out with both stability and performance, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to the number of your P cores minus 1. For some CPUs, it'll just be your number of cores, but with most modern CPUs, like what I have, which is the Intel i9-13900K, they have what are called P core, which are performance cores, and E cores, which are efficiency cores. The E cores kind of handle some background tasks, and the P cores are what really send for gaming. So how do you know? Because right here it says that I have 24 cores. Well, what you can do is you can go and you can look up your individual CPU, and you can see here for the 13900K, the number of performance cores that I have is 8. So we're going to take that number, subtract it by 1, and it's just going to be 7. So just go ahead and do some research on your CPU. If you don't feel comfortable changing any of this, hit up a guy like Merc, or just don't change this at all. Just know that it does help. And then you're just going to save it. And once you save it, you can close it out, and then boom, you're going to be set. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the controller settings. Now, as you guys know, it's been a kind of a pain to play on controller. Aim assist is incredible, but we haven't been able to both tap to slide and tap to dive. We kind of had to pick whether we wanted to slide or dive, and it felt really sluggish. Well, fortunately, they added some new settings that kind of help mitigate that, and we're going to cover those. But if you don't want to have to deal with any of that hassle, go ahead and pick up the